Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Three Man Weave College Basketball Podcast. We are full strength once again. Matthew Cox has returned from Bermuda to join us for the Big Ten preview. I'm your host for this adventure through Big Ten land, Jim Root, and Kai McEwen is also here on the DJ ones and twos behind the scenes. All three are here ready to talk Big Ten, the biggest Big Ten ever, as Kai put in the YouTube caption. Love to see that. Episode 371 here. We're excited. We're getting closer and closer to the year, one month away from games, basically exactly. As we speak to you on October 3rd. Fellas, we've got a little Roots Roundup before we get to Big Ten. But man, 18 teams, we got to get into it. Matthew, are you feeling relaxed and ready after your respite on Bermuda?
Yes, rejuvenated, refocused, ignited with joy and enthusiasm, Jim. A little disheveled this morning, testing out my new mic and new location, but we're a very flexible group here, very adaptable, chameleons of the college basketball podcasting realm. So yeah, talked to PJ Thompson last night. So yeah, I'm fresh on Big Ten-esque vibes. PJ Thompson, offensive coordinator for Purdue Kai, for those who have no idea who that is. So yeah, I got some good Purdue takes, some good Homer IU takes, as well as many other, I guess, average takes on the other a million teams in this conference.
Yeah, you. By the way, you sound great, Mister ASMR bass guy over here, a true podcaster. Yeah, Matt's in his new office building. I don't love the Jim and I don't like the background. He needs to move in some.
It's work in progress.
Some
generic
wall gear.
Yeah,
PJ Thompson graduated in 2018, so he's moved up pretty quickly in the coaching world from his days at Purdue. Good for him. Good interview. Check that out, obviously.
Yeah, that is in the Burner Discord. That is where all of our previews are rolling out. We've got AMAs in there. We got Mark Titus coming up next week. So lots of great questions to ask him. And Scout Team just debuted the film breakdown with Kevin Sweeney and Eric Fawcett. So all kinds of goodies in there. It is blowing away the value of $6 a month. In addition to all the Trilly Donovan recruiting scoops you get into the Discord if you have even an inkling of care about college basketball, it's the place to be.
Yeah, mid-major stuff, Jim. Sorry. Yeah, important. Mid-majors are coming out heavy this month. I feel like everything's been very high major focused, both in the content we've done up to this point, the previews we've released. So mid-major fans will be starting to kind of filter into your forums and pull you into our forum, the forum of college basketball discussion. So join us. Good stuff.
That's right. Right after we get done with this, I'll be posting the Ivy preview. Kai's got the Missouri Valley coming on Friday to pair with yesterday's media day for the Missouri Valley. We don't sync those up because we don't plan. That's not how we work. We don't do great stuff with that, but we're excited. Lots of mid-major previews rolling on there, as Matt implied or said explicitly. Shout out to Jay Pitty, the producer of our wonderful opening tunes. Follow us on Twitter at 3MW_CBB. Also the same handle on Instagram. Subscribe to the pod on iTunes, Amazon, Spotify, wherever it is that you get your pods. Leave a review on Apple if you so please. We do have one this week, so we'll double back to do that at the very end of the episode. Get into that single preview. Subscribe to the YouTube channel where we are streaming live right now. Got 2,200 subscribers, something like that, Kai. We're way up there. We'd love to hit 3,000 by the end of this season. There's a stretch goal.
Yeah. Is there a milestone, Kai, we should be shooting for?
As many as possible. As many as possible. And
we'll settle for 1 million.
For how horrible we are at actually making videos and like clipping them up and like putting graphics on, I'll take what we're at right now, to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah. We're not super skilled. We don't have those hard skills, design skills, Kai. We're a soft skills bunch. That's our strength. But yes, shout out to the Big Ten preview coming up here. We've got a group little kegs and eggs on Saturday for Mizzou football at Kai's place. I'm very excited about that.
God damn it.
I am also wearing a Brewers shirt after a dramatic comeback win to force Game 3 against the Mets. Lots of fun sports storylines right now, boys. Kai, are you excited to host?
I'm very excited. Is Matt not coming? Why was he upset?
I have baby shower number 1 this weekend. And I'm not upset. I'm thrilled, Kai. And that was not an upset reaction. That was a ha ha ha. You have to drink beer and I have to, and you don't get to come to the shower. Ha ha ha. That was the tone I was trying to.
How convenient
Matt,
for you.
Come have some eggs. I'm making biscuits and gravy. You can have some of that before you go to the shower.
Oh, it's in St. Louis.
Well,
therein lies the rub, Jim.
A little tougher.
Yeah.
Makes it a little
But
tougher.
hey, the Chicago one's in 2 weeks, so you guys can all crash that one.
Can't wait. Can't wait. All right, we already gave a great plug for the Discord. So, fellas, let's just get into Roots Roundup. Roots Roundup is our news and notes section here, recapping the events, comings and goings of the last week. But first, we must give a shout out to CBB Analytics, a loyal sponsor, and we're going to give Matt's buttery new microphone a chance to really play it up.
Ooh. Yes, Jim, CBB Analytics, the holy grail of college basketball analytics, soup to nuts, from players to team level statistics, a million different ways you can slice and dice the context of those stats by competition, by home road, by conference, non-conference, player shooting charts, heat maps. Also have advanced on-off stuff. You can look at some different lineup combinations. And as I was just kind of delving into more deeply as we get deeper into the mid-major previews, guys, the Division II and Division III stats are super, super helpful. Again, coaches, if you're looking into scouring through the D2, D3 ranks for undervalued talent, the fact that Nick has all that up there for you in a very apples to apples comparison with the D1 type stuff is awesome. So please check it out. Again, the promo code is WEAVE, WEAVE, $40 off a subscription for you normies and for you coaches. Yes, please, again, contact us and we'll try and get you access to the Holy Grail. All of the data that we have access to behind the scenes should certainly help you as you get a head start on your ever-evolving portal scanning process.
Amen to that. We had a couple guys enter the portal this week, even as practice is started.
What the hell?
So, yeah, I don't really know how to explain that, but hey, these kids are running from the grind, Matt. That's what's happening.
I saw Kent State's kicker enter the portal, which I thought was really funny. Just a quick football tangent there, middle of the season.
Can he kick for the Packers? I would take just about anybody at this point. Okay, key headlines. Gonzaga to the Pac-12, boys. That's where we got to start. It has there's been flirtations with the Big East, the Big 12 for the Zags. They are now headed to the rejuvenated, refreshed Pac-12, basically the Mountain West plus now Gonzaga, Washington State, and Oregon State. Kai, this is a pretty big move for them. I listened to a good discussion from Mr. Parrish and Mr. Norlander on this and how it gives them a lot more long-term security instead of being in the WCC, which once Mark Few is gone, once Randy Bennett is gone, could potentially see a hoops decline. This sets Gonzaga up a little better for the future.
It does. Yeah. This was a move I think everyone kind of wanted when the Pac-12 was real and initially like Arizona and schools, but yeah, good for them. I think they're getting a pretty good deal. So no football, Pac-12 basketball only membership. I think other sports besides basketball, but obviously because the Zags do not have football. Great move. We hate realignment. This one at least makes sense.
I like that the Zags were very adamant about keeping the geographic integrity. I think their AD was on record as saying that. So I don't like that the Pac-12 got an undeserved bump of credibility I don't think the Pac-12 deserves Gonzaga. I'll say that from a college basketball purist standpoint. I hope it all works out. I hope the luster is restored with whatever becomes of it. I just think the Pac-12 didn't deserve this good grace, Jim.
Well, the Pac-12 had its foibles. Larry Scott has earned many, stones thrown his way for his treatment of the Pac-12, but I'm still glad there's going to be a conference after dark.
I agree.
And it's not just Mountain West. I mean, it does almost make sense to just merge the two, but the Mountain West, in a move to bounce back from the losses of Colorado State, San Diego State, Utah State, etc., grabbed Texas State and UTEP, Kai. We've got one Sun Belt program, one CUSA program, giving New Mexico a natural rival down there with UTEP. Geographically sort of makes sense. I kind of buy it from that lens. Football programs, whatever. From a basketball sense, this is kind of a shrug.
Mountain West is getting kind of bad. It's dying. Unfortunately, this sucks. I don't get the Texas State move. I understand they're getting better at football, Matthew. You know that, but okay. That was the next option. No offense to San Marcos and Texas State. It's just strange to me. Hey, whatever. Charleston State, by the way, I think is getting a look as well in Mountain West.
Yeah, it's just like Sacramento State was another weird school that I feel like has been popping up on these
They're like trying to push for $30 million of NIL money.
I guess they got a ton of donation. I don't know. I mean, I must have some very well-to-do alumnuses, which always Tarleton's in that same boat. But yeah, it's just weird to see these schools that like don't make sense from like a your performance hasn't really justified athletically football or basketball, you moving up, but then you're sort of in this mix because you have money, and then it just kind of throws everything out the window. I mean, obviously UMass with their stupid decision is kind of the poster child of why we hate all this crap. So hopefully less of this happens, but I think more of it will happen.
Yeah, the one other thing too, you mentioned geography in the Pac-12 and Gonzaga being stringent on that. Our boy Dick Weiss reporting that the Memphis to Pac-12 is not dead, despite the Americans saying American strong and closing the borders there. And Gonzaga could perhaps have given the Pac-12 a little more credibility that could lead to more schools migrating over there. We'll see. We'll see. We'll let you know in the key headlines portion in the future. Recruiting news: Baylor had the biggest wave made, I guess, this week with Tunde Yesufu, a top 20 prospect committing to Baylor, active power forward. Well done, Mr. Drew. UConn continued to cook on the recruiting circuit as well. Combo guard Darius Adams headed to the Huskies, a top 25 prospect. Man, I feel like that place should be able to recruit itself at this point after back-to-back national titles. Every single guy that goes there improves. Dan Hurley probably has his pick of the litter at this point. He turned away the NBA. I mean, Kai, what an easy way to recruit. Like, I said no to the Lakers.
Turn down the Lakers for you. I'm Bill Murray's son, says Luke. It's like, okay, yeah, I'll come to your school.
But does being Bill Murray's son matter anymore?
I don't know. Well, surely every kid has seen Space Jam still.
You'd hope.
I hope.
No, they're watching Space Jam 2 with Algae Rhythm as the evil.
It wasn't good. We could do a whole podcast on Space Jam 2. It wasn't good, but suffice to say, UConn's good. Yes.
Next offseason, Kai, we'll do a Space Jam college basketball version, and we'll bring in Russ and write a new script for it. Yeah, it'll be great.
All right.
UNC and LSU also had top 60-ish prospects. Derek Dixon headed to North Carolina. Maisie Mosley to LSU. Christian Jeffrey, a 4-star combo guard to Maryland. And the last one inside the top 100, 4-star small forward Ryder Frost to Notre Dame. The Irish now have the number 1 class in the class of 2025 with Harrelson and a couple guys just outside the top 100. Micah Shrewsbury with talent, Matthew. Notre Dame is going to be cooking sooner rather than later.
Sure is. Great coach, great talent equals great outcomes? Yeah, no, I would love to see Notre Dame just explode. I don't like Notre Dame football, Kai, but my Notre Dame disdain for the Domers, as we live in Chicago and we're kind of exposed to it, I think. That's just football. I like the basketball program. Very different mental approach for me in terms of how I root for that program.
That's almost all because of Shrewsbury. And I love Mike Bray, too. So they've made 2 just like really likable hires.
Yeah, likable coaches, good coaches. Totally. Yep.
I also just like that they're in a conference. There's not the pretension of we're independent that has a deal with a TV network by itself. They don't have that. So, yeah, it makes them easier to chew for. Not as much the big, bad independent. Injuries. Sadly, we have a couple to report in this section here. Chris Youngblood for Alabama, the South Florida transfer sharpshooter, American Player of the Year last year, I believe. He had ankle surgery. It might have been co-player of the year with Nelly Davis. He had ankle surgery, so he is out likely until conference play. Matt, I know you and I are both super high on Youngblood, especially. I kind of left enamored with him when I saw him in person at South Florida last year. He can shoot. He was a great fit for the system. This just means a little more Aiden Holloway, maybe a little more LeBaron Filan, a freshman. The good thing for the Tide is that they're ridiculously deep.
Yeah, what about our guy Houston Millett, Jim? Just going to bomb it from 35, baby. Like he's a forgotten bench piece on this team. That's how good this team is. So yeah, it's a bummer because I love him, but I think that's sort of the luxury of the riches that Alabama has right now with their depth, and it's just they'll be fine, I think.
Yeah,
for the time being.
I have not changed their rating one iota, despite loving Youngblood. That's how highly I think of their defense, or excuse me, their depth. Kai, the other injury to mention, our king, Robbie Avila, with an ankle sprain that has left him on crutches, although he's apparently out of a boot. I did see a clip. He's not in a boot. So that is good. Should be ready for the season opener. But we need all of the Avila we can handle in our lives. My SLU fan brother and brother's friends were freaking out about this. Let's get him on the court. Let's put him in plastic wrap.
Get better, Mr. Cream, Mr. Blurred. We need you on the floor. SLU needs you. College basketball needs you. Get better soon.
I hear he's more athletic after the procedure. He's like rim rocking dunks now. So it was actually a good thing, Jim. It's like you come out that ACL like yourself, you're actually better. off the injury. So I think it's what you'll see from Avila, more bounce, more springiness. That's what I hope to see.
I mean, he's still limping right now, so I don't know if we can
coming.
Say that for
sure. You
have
to be patient, Slew fans. You're going to see a different Avila when he is right this year.
Like a rookie of the year situation where suddenly he's throwing 100 on the corners. Okay, good. That would be great. That would be great. I would enjoy it. Other random news and notes. Yes, media days are happening. We had Missouri Valley yesterday. Today, as we podcast on Thursday, is Big Ten Media Day in Chicago.
Good timing.
We are not there. That's okay.
We're
going to give you the outsider scoop. I have no idea, Matt.
It's probably United Center or UIC.
Yeah.
Yeah, would make sense.
They're doing a really stupid format, though, where they're doing like a coaches roundtable thing. Have you guys seen
this? It's like 3 at a time. It's really odd.
It's dumb. It's just so like, it feels very protecting the coaches and limiting the, it's like kind of putting the journalist questions on a guardrails to, I guess, I'm assuming prevent like controversial realignment questions, I think was part of the theme with that. I don't know. Maybe. Stupid. I hate it.
That's media outsider Matt Cox coming at your format. Right. Big Ten, watch out.
Capital J's, look out. You're in my crosshairs.
Jim, I'm curious where the standings will land in comparison to yours. Will you do a better job?
Yeah, we'll find out. The main difference, I can tell, as we go through these standings in a second here, I can tell you the main differences that the media poll came out with. And with that, I mean, that really wraps up Roots Roundup, fellas. I just wanted to give that shout out to people. Keep an eye out for scrimmage results as those start to roll in. Make sure you only acknowledge the ones that help your priors and help your biases and ignore and discredit the ones that go against whatever you think. That's how we treat scrimmage results here. Okay, yes, let's do it. Big Ten preview, fellas. We'll start. I'll go through my standings. I can tell you like I said, the differences that the media had. Really quick, all conference and awards, and then we'll get into the 18 teams because Kai's got to go to work, and we're going to let him do that. We don't want him here till 9 in the morning. Yeah. Sorry to cast that cloud over your day.
That's all right.
But predicted standings. I have an 8-team tier 1, basically the teams that I think could probably win it. That's how balanced I think it is at the top. And then tier 2 could theoretically make the NCAA tournament. It's a very flat conference. Number 1 to number 18 is not all that wide of a spread, in my opinion. On a neutral floor, Purdue number 1 versus whoever I have number 18 would not be, it certainly wouldn't be double digits, I'll tell you that much. So I think this is a pretty narrow conference. But in tier 1, Purdue is first. It's where I landed. It's kind of the default choice. Indiana 2, Oregon 3, Michigan 4th, Rutgers 5th, UCLA 6th. Illinois 7th, Michigan 8th, Michigan State 8th, the last team in tier 1. And then in order, tier 2, Ohio State, Washington, Maryland, Iowa, Nebraska, USC, Wisconsin, Northwestern, Penn State, and Minnesota. The media had Illinois higher at 4th, and then Oregon, Michigan, Washington, all a little lower. So interesting notes from the media there, biased against the newcomers. Kai, any really big qualms, or do you want to wait till we go through teams to fight over order?
Yeah, well, like you said, the league is flat. I think we can definitely wait to go through teams to discuss where Matt and I might have differed, but I do want to emphasize how difficult it is to pick a standings here. It's almost like
it's the hardest conference in the history of conferences. Like I'm serious. I went through it. Hardest conference ever to pick standings.
15, yes, it's really difficult. So, if your team happens to be picked 17th, rest assured, they're basically the same as 10 in this league. It's really close.
Yeah, and by no means is it a condemnation. Like I said, tier 2, you can make the tournament as an at-large. Every one of those teams can. The teams that finish last will likely be due to injuries and chemistry implosions off the court. None of these teams are destined for like you're screwed outside the top 100 year. That is not the median outcome for any team in this league.
Jim, I also had an 18 tier 1 and a 10 team tier 2. So kudos to us for seeing eye to eye there. I had one team flipped, or I guess 2 teams flipped, but hit me with the general
flip. What's the flip?
Illinois, I have them in tier 2, and I have Maryland in tier 1.
This is exciting. Okay. We're all going to differ because I have Illinois higher than Jim. So Matt, this will be a good little discussion.
I think I'm the lowest in Illinois, but again, Illinois would be like, this is my whole, to your point, like Illinois would be favored against the top team I have in this league right now according to my numbers.
And what you're saying is at home Illinois would be a favorite against number 1. Yes, that's how narrow it is. That's the gap. It's not large. Real quick, all conference. I went First team, Braden Smith of Purdue, Jackson Shelstead, my man crush from Oregon, Dylan Harper of Rutgers, Great Osobor, Washington, and Vlad Golden of Michigan, two newcomer bigs there. Second team, Bruce Thornton of Ohio State, Miles Rice of Indiana, Peyton Sanford, Iowa, Ace Bailey, the other freshman phenom at Rutgers, and Umar Ballo, the Indiana big man transfer from Arizona. Third team, Ace Baldwin of Penn State, Kylan Boswell of Illinois. You could really pick almost any Illinois guy, the one you think is going to stand out the most there. Dylan Andrews, UCLA, Malik Reneau of Indiana, and Dawson Garcia, Minnesota. Despite where I have them in the standings, I think Garcia is going to be super prolific and productive. Fellas, any guys that you just want to make sure you give a shout out to here? Anybody you want to harangue me for and where I place them? Kyle, go to you first on your any quick all conference thoughts.
I think all conference is impossible in this league, much like standings. I think you could put maybe 15 more guys on these teams, and you'd be like, "Yep, that makes a lot of sense." I think maybe it was I think Greg Waddell tweeted media all conference teams had like 4 or 5 guys on the team from like teams 14 through 18, and not as many as the top guys, because it's hard to figure out who some of the better players are on some of these teams. Like you said, Illinois, it could be any of 3 players, right? So it's kind of a guessing game right now for all conference. I like your first team though, and your second team as well. I think you did a fine job here, Jim.
Thanks. Yeah, third team's a crapshoot. Brooks Barnheiser was the one the media put on first team, I believe, for Northwestern that I do not have on. And
first team,
that's fine with me. Throw him on second. Well, it's a 10 player first team, which is the dumb part. But
yeah, so this is my problem with all conference. It's just like how much weight do you put on team success? Do you have 3 teams from the second or third best team, or do you put nobody? Like the Dawson Garcia, right? That's like the most obvious, like monster performer. Minnesota's probably going to be at the bottom of the standings. So would you put him over a guy like Ace Bailey if you're deliberating? Like, how do you compare those two? It's all conference always makes me mad. I go through every league. I'm just annoyed that how frustrated I got by trying to make selections. But yeah, Jim, I generally agree with your choices. I have no qualms at this point.
Yeah, when you force Matt to get off the fence, he doesn't love it. He gets ornery.
The fence is comfortable. That jagged, pointed picket is a nice cushion for me, Jim. I did enjoy it.
My player of the year was Braden Smith. Again, kind of a default selection because where else are you going? I mean, I know he's a very good player on the team I picked first. So that's kind of where I landed. Matt Painter, I went coach of the year because winning the league without Zach Edey, I think would warrant that the year after, despite relatively high expectations. Vlad Golden from Michigan for newcomer of the year, and Dylan Harper from Rutgers as freshman of the year. Fellas, some quick storylines to mention in the Big Ten before we go team by team. Just a quick welcome to the West Coast, Washington, Oregon, UCLA, USC, the introduction of more travel in this league. Even more so than football, it matters because of the weeknight travel and the like week-long road trips you'll have to take to play a doubleheader out on the West Coast. And of course, for those teams, the West Coast squads, they've got even more travel going the other way. Every single road trip they take basically is going to be across the country. It's a new world for the 18-team Big Ten. We hate it. It's weird. Not many hot seat coaches here. Trilly Donovan did his write-up on the coaching carousel within the league, his carousel insider intel. Just Mike Woodson and Greg Gard really with a burning seat. No Ben Johnson, notably there for Minnesota fans. He's not quite to that level yet. But Matt, he also put Fran McCaffrey on retirement watch. So as a 65-year-old, potentially could transition out of it now that his sons are no longer in the program. Is there anybody you've got an eye on, whether it's a new coach or somebody in the carousel that you're keeping close watch?
I mean, I think the only bad vibe coach is probably Iowa and Fran. It just seems like from the Discord discussion and all the stuff that we've read this year and how they
IU's got bad vibes. Come on.
Yeah, I think surely I agree, but I think the anticipation of the roster has sort of put that at bay for now. But then obviously if there's some underachievement, that will be the most, fervorish fan base with pitchforks we'll see. Ohio State, Jim, is sort of the one coaching spot I'm watching this year. I'm not all the way skeptical, but I certainly have some question marks, and we'll see what happens with Mr. Diebler there. But that's like the most fascinating, I think, new hire in this league for me.
Yeah, that's going to be definitely worth picking at in the team preview, whether that was the right choice or not. We'll get there. And my last general thought here is I don't think there's a national title contender. And we can get in trouble for saying that if some team rockets up into the top 5 and gets a 1 or 2 seed. But the top ranked Big Ten team in my power ratings is like tied for 17th, Kai. So
Wow.
I think Big 12, SEC have each got 4 or 5 teams I'd take ahead of the top team in the Big Ten. It is deep, it is parity ridden and even, but it is not top heavy. That's what I would say.
Purdue's in my top 10, but I accept your opinion. Yes, I think Purdue can win the title, but
Okay.
not as strong as last year. Obviously, still really good.
Obviously, yes. They lack a giant man in the middle. Well, a specific giant man in the middle. They still have options, and let's get into it. Let's go to Purdue, a team that does reside in Kai's top 10, somewhat controversially maybe in the Discord as we released our voting ranks. Kai stood by it. We love to see that. Yeah, Zach Edey, he's pretty good. He was in the 100th percentile of net rating per CBB Analytics. The Boilermakers were 38 points better for 100 possessions when Edey was out there. Now, obviously, you have a whole offseason to prepare for not having Edey. It's not a complete situation where the team is built around his impact. So I don't think it's going to be some chasm drop off as indicated by those numbers. But Kai, what has you so optimistic about this team? I personally am amped about Miles Colvin and Cam Heide, their potential breakouts. But I know you also are a big Trey Kaufman-Renn guy.
I am. This is interesting. I've noticed a disconnect between media guys and then like fans of college basketball. So Discord fans seem to think Purdue's going to drop off a lot. Media guys, all I've seen is Purdue number 1 in the Big Ten. I haven't really seen much differentiation in that. I wonder why. There's obviously a huge focus on Edey. He was generational, Matthew, but they bring back so much, man. They bring back so much. One of the best backcourts in the country was Smith and Lawyer. Everyone always laughs when I say that because no one likes Fletcher Lawyer. But the fact of the matter is he's a 2-year starter. One was on a championship runner-up team. The other a 1 seed. He's a good player, and Smith is the front runner for the Big Ten Player of the Year. Colvin and Heide coming back for sophomore years. So much upside with those guys. And yes, I am a TKR fan, Matthew. He can hold down the fort inside. You can play through him on the block. I am a huge fan of this team, Matt Painter in general. I think they should be unanimous, number 1 in this league.
Yeah, I have them tied for first, so I think they're worthy of being at the top, but not by a.
You have everyone tied. You're Matty Fence. You're Matty Fence.
Every team is the same. Everyone is the same. We're all the same. The Purdue debate to me is like, okay, either you think this team's going to be fringe top 10, or you think they're going to be like 15 to 25-ish, really good, but certainly not as dominant as the versions we've seen. I think that's sort of where the range of Purdue debate outcomes come. So it's like, congratulations, Purdue. That's sort of the luxury of what your program is right now. I'm kind of in the middle on that. I don't quite see top 10 upside. I know the youth is good and the internal pipeline is fruitful, but I just think losing Edey is just, I mean, obviously it's almost like a system shock to what they're going to be without him. And I know they have all summer to get prepped for it. I know Braden Smith and Fletcher Lawyer are going to be better than people give them credit for generally, but I also think they were really, really, really helped by Edey last season. I think there were some holes that will be exposed without his presence, even as good as Kaufman-Renn is, and even as high as I am on Miles Colvin, Jim, who I think will be really good.
Yeah, I love Colvin and Heide, like I said. Big time breakouts there. I want to see if Heide can play that stretch 4 at times. I think Gillis really opened things up for them as a 50% 3-point shooter. Stretch 4, playing alongside Edey. Now, whether the center is Kaufman-Renn or if he's playing 4 at times next to Berg or Jacobson, the 2 7'2" behemoths that are now replacing Edey. However Painter makes it work, like Matt said, the floor basically is top 25. 9 straight years in the KenPom top 25 for Purdue. The program is going to be just fine considering the amount they bring back and having a point guard, the extension of the coach, a couple of now 3-year starters in the backcourt. I'm not worried about Purdue falling off. So that's why they feel like I say in air quotes, safe pick to finish number 1 in the Big Ten, because you're probably not going to look dumb if they finish 3rd. So
7 top 20, 5 top 10, Jim, in the last 9
years. 5 top 10s. Yes,
crazy.
Indeed. He's a good coach, folks. He's a really good coach. Next up, Indiana, number 2. Matthew, your Hoosiers seemingly have a more logically constructed roster here. There's more guard play. We are big Miles Rice fans here at the 3-Man Week podcast. He helped lead Washington State back to the tournament. The Ballo Renew combo up front is interesting, especially if Malik continues to add that 3-point jumper. He's a very good passer, as we saw to Ware last year. I'm not a big Cannon Carlisle guy. I'm not as high on Mackenzie and Baco as Indiana fans are. Will Luke Goody play enough to give them extra spacing? Where do you land on the Hoosiers, Matt? Are they the team that's tied with Purdue for you?
Yeah, they are. The talent to me is just too overwhelming. The depth is overwhelming. The optionality is what's overwhelming. I think you can, go back and forth on how good you think Carlisle is, how good do you think Mbako really is, how much will Goody play, but just like frankly, you only need like one of those dudes to really stick, especially if Miles Rice stays healthy. I think my general take with this team, Kai, is point guard play. Miles Rice / Carlisle. Is there a split there? Is Rice kind of I assume Rice will be more of the alpha for sure.
God,
Can he stay healthy? Yeah. Carlisle has gotten a ton of buzz in the last 3 weeks on social. So I'm with Jim. I think people got too excited about him personally. I know he had some upside at Stanford, but he just wasn't that efficient. And then rim protection. I know Ballo's an imposing presence up front, but I don't think he's a crazy, awesome, athletic shot blocker. I think he did have a pretty good block rate at Arizona last season, but their defense was not great. And I think Indiana is maybe forgetting the luxuries of rim protection they've had with Ware last season and then TJD prior to him. That's my only other concern, Kai. I think this roster is too good to fail, frankly, for Woodson. So
Arizona's a top 10 defense, sir.
Well, they really, I thought they faltered.
Yeah. Number 1 in the Pac-12, top 10 defense. They were a good defense.
I guess you're right.
This is one of the best rosters in the country. The question is, can Woodson lead them? I have huge question marks. I think Ballo has been underrated at this point. It's been people basically tearing him down for being ranked so highly in transfer rankings. This guy's dominant. He's a dominant post presence and will be one of the most dominant players in this league. Rice, he's the man. Jim mentioned it. He's a big upgrade at point guard. He's much better than Xavier Johnson. Probably from a chemistry standpoint too, just reading into that. Yeah, shooting is a question like Jim mentioned. Goody does help if he plays a lot. Mbako, I would bet on improvement. I think he gets a lot better this season. This team needs to be good on defense. I think last year was kind of a blip in terms of the defensive side. Woodson, I think, usually will have a good defensive team. I think this team can kind of get back to that.
Yeah, there's a little more experience. They're kind of young. Last year, Mbako, I think, really struggled on the defensive end early. So now more composed together, more cohesion, perhaps it's better. And I also like that the backup centers are almost so bad you can't play them, which, Woodson mentioned a small ball in an interview, and I think Indiana collectively lost their minds and like joy of, oh, maybe we'll see Mbako at the 4 a lot alongside Ballo or Renault. Then you get 3 guards on the floor, or you play Bryson Tucker at the 3-4 kind of tweener spot there. That would be a relief to see. Maybe a little more spacing, a little more ball skills on the floor, a little more even switchability defensively, mobility, versatility. I think that would be beneficial for Indiana. So hopefully we'll get that from Mr. Woodson.
Yeah, Bryson Tucker too, I think is going to be kind of awesome. I think you have to.
How good can the 8th man be? That's the question. 7th man, 6th man.
Yeah.
All right, next up, Oregon. I mentioned my love for Jackson Shelstad. I think he's going to be the poster child for this team. The Peyton Pritchard path, went to the same high school, wears the same number. Those two have been intertwined in their careers. But I also love the plug and play of TJ Bamba as the Jermaine Couisnard big bully ball ISO guard at the top of the key. They ran a lot of that very successfully for Couisnard last year. You've got a ton of upside in the sophomore class between Kwame Evans and a now healthy Mookie Cook. Maybe Nathan Biddle will actually play a full season. Mr. Brittle Biddle, let's get him out there. But kind of the last 3 years, Dana Altman, 0 top 40 KenPom finishes. Yeah. Health is a big part of it, but are we concerned about that? Or do we think with a healthy year, this Duck team is legit?
I do want to point out I had the exact same top 3 as you, Jim. Although Oregon and Indiana are basically the same for me. Good. Yeah, I'm high on this Ducks roster. Surprised the media poll had them lower, although I'm starting to notice biases in the media polls in all conference teams.
Yeah, totally.
Looking at Missouri Valley, it's very skewed towards incumbents and returners.
Yes.
So I think that's
Frank Martin said real quick, he's like, a lot of coaches just only vote for returners. They don't even look at newcomers.
Yeah, I think that's a huge part of it. Anyways, yeah, Shelstad, man, All-American ceiling. And let's not forget about Kwame Evans and Mookie Cook. These two guys were huge recruits too and have major upside. Injuries have been a huge issue for Altman. we tend to give that as an excuse for him, and he doesn't. He's definitely done a few things that are incorrect over the last couple of years, but that's been a major issue. Hopefully they stay healthy. They're strong up front once again with Biddle. If he stays healthy, I think Cook is an insurance policy. He's not a guy you want to rely on, but it's a nice guy to have as an option off the bench at the 5. Angel and Bamba were very smart gets for Altman. Veteran players can kind of play in different positions, different ways, both plenty of experience in power conferences. And it's going to be a good shooting team, Matt. I think if this team stays healthy, absolute Big Ten title contender, fully expect them to jump back into the top 40 of KenPom.
Yeah, the upside here is like, I think we talk about how there's no national title team here. We also say there's no bad team in this conference. The odds are we're probably going to have one break toward the upside, and we might have one or two break toward the downside. I'm not going to put Oregon in top 10 yet, but I think they have maybe the highest ceiling in this league. I really do. I just think, Kyle, you mentioned Mookie Cook. I mean, Kwame Evans is like an absolute freak. Like, if he's not even starting behind Angel and Biddle, especially if Biddle's healthy, we know how good he can be. We love the backcourt with Shellstead. Now you have a veteran presence next to him to kind of co-orchestrate the offense. The depth is, just the experience and Raheem Moss from Toledo is going to be like your third guy off the bench. Like, that dude can absolutely score. You have a JUCO and a top 50 guy coming in like at bench 5, bench 6. So yeah, the depth is going to be great. Altman always has injuries. He's going to need it this year to probably plug holes if those injury landmines do arise again. But yeah, I almost put Oregon to win this league. I think this roster has a lot going for it. And I think just the uniqueness and maybe difference of away from the Big Ten brand will help them this year. I think the uniqueness will really help their first year in the league.
Kai showing off a wonderful Oregon Ducks t-shirt there. And the new court design. Keep an eye out for that out in Eugene. People are apparently going to like that a little better. Yeah, there was a point last year, I believe, where 4 of the Ducks' 5 opening day starters were out with injuries. That's how crippled they got. They really had to play a bunch of different lineups. Ended up with 10 starting lineups. Get healthier, and I think, like Kai said, this team's got title contender status. If I had any balls, I would have picked them number 1, but I do not. So I left them 3rd. Next up, Michigan. Dusty May in the house. Matthew, probably the biggest Dusty May fan of all time. We had like a coach's fantasy draft a year ago, and Matt took Dusty over some very noted names in the sport. Hopefully the dysfunction is gone behind the scenes that really cropped up at the end of the Juwan Howard tenure. The personnel's got some awesome defensive potential with Reuben Jones, Trey Donaldson, Vlad Golden as the anchor in the paint. But Matt, are they going to play 2 centers together with Danny Wolf and Vlad Golden? It sounds like yes. Are they going to have enough scoring pop in the backcourt, or do they just have kind of ball movers, facilitators? What do you see with this team? How do they put the best 5 in the court? Do you trust Dusty May to get Michigan as high as 4th?
I do. I have him, I think 6th or something, 5th. Again, this is in the who the hell knows. You don't. It's all a tie type thing. And I wouldn't choose Dusty May over Kelvin Sampson. Let's just be clear. I think Kelvin Sampson's a better coach. I think Dusty May rocks.
Sampson's off the board.
He was off the board there. Okay, right, good. Okay. Namari Burnett, Jim, we love. We still love him. I kind of like that him and Shedder. No, if you cooled.
I used to love him. I don't anymore.
Okay, he's a good defender. I think if he's healthy, he's an asset for this team. But I love that they don't need him to be great because they got Donaldson, my boy, and then Reuben Jones, my guy as well. Really underrated backcourt. Much like the FAU team, the guards aren't like explosively dynamic. It's more about the wings and the bigs. You just need good opportunistic guards like Greenlee and Boyd. I think it's what you have in Donaldson and Reuben Jones, who can also shut down on the other end. And you have an upside guy in Gale, too, to go get you one, more of like a wing dynamic type scorer. A lot of tools to work with here. The Wolf Golden thing will be fascinating. But with him and those two and Shedder, I think the front line's going to be really good. Like, they'll have some real size. Walters with some upside as well. Yeah, I don't get why you're not like Michigan. To me, should be a surefire top 5 team in this league if you're picking standings. No,
I haven't said
too high.
Didn't you say you had them 6th as you started?
I guess I know. I was just say that I feel like they should. As I look at this roster closer, like they should definitely be in the upper half of this league. I feel it's a pretty high floor, even though it is a new regime and a bunch of new players. I just think May and this roster has too much flexibility, adaptability to really fail.
Yeah, I kind of see a wider range actually. I put them 7, but to your point, they're basically the same as every other team in this tier. I think Trey Donaldson is not getting enough press. I think he can be really good.
I agree.
he doesn't get noticed much because his counting stats don't stand out. He didn't play a ton at Auburn. I think he's actually really, really good. I think Roddy Gale could still be a star. I'm a huge fan of him. And I think the Golden Wolf front line works. I've heard the concerns. People are like, you can't play Wolf and Golden. This is like NBA guys coming in and trying to talk, and NBA fans. You can absolutely play Golden and Wolf together. Both are awesome players, and Wolf is not that immobile. The guy's pretty, especially offensively. Yale moved him all over the court. So I am not worried about the Golden Wolf combination, and I love the Reuben Jones addition you guys mentioned. It's a big team. It's a big perimeter. It's a great front court. It's a versatile group, to Matt's point. Maybe the floor is higher than I'm thinking, Jim, but for now I'm putting him 7. I think the ceiling might be a little bit lower to start.
Yeah, fair. The ceiling, I think, just because there's not like a go-to perimeter option, unless Gale really emerges outside of what he was at Ohio State, which was solid, but not like superstar. I like having the Walters Shedder 1-2 punch of tall shooter that maybe needs a little bit of cover defensively, and they've got enough cover out there within the lineup. And then Justin Pippen, the younger brother of Scottie Pippen Jr., I think is kind of a little high upside. Keep one eye on him and see what he can offer as a spark plug off the bench there. All right, and moving to number 5, Rutgers, another team of very, very wide range of outcomes. We're going to say that about number 5 and then number 7 when we get to Illinois as well. Rutgers, Steve Pikiell with probably his most talented, just on raw talent, most talented roster. Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey, 2 electric top 3 recruits from a very highly regarded recruiting class. They both passed my eye test with flying colors. You've got role players, though, that maybe that's where your mileage varies with this team. Are you into Agbole as a minutes eater at center? Do you get enough shooting from PJ Hayes, Tyson Acuff, Zach Martini? Added perimeter defense from J. Mike, Jordan Durkak, Jeremiah Williams also in that mix. Kai, where do you land on Rutgers? This team could be great if the freshmen hit and the role players fit, or it could be a disaster if the freshmen aren't ready and then you have to kind of scramble to figure things out.
I was looking at the media poll, Jim, because I expected them to be really low on Rutgers. They had them 7, Michigan 9, by the way, in the media poll. I have Rutgers 9 in the league, but again, they're basically the same as Michigan. Harper and Bailey are the 2 most talented players in program history. It's really hard to overstate that fact, and I know they're freshmen and they're coming in. They haven't played college basketball yet, but we're kind of entering new territory with Rutgers. They've never had 2 guys of this caliber. They had Harper's brother. He was great. He's not as talented as Dylan Harper. This offense could really step up with them. And Jeremiah Williams is still pretty good on the offensive end. And you add Acuff and Durkak, 2 guys that in their own right, maybe not stars at the power level, but certainly guys that can score. And that's what Rutgers needs. Agbole at center is going to be fine. People worry about him way too much. This guy can absolutely be a starting center on a tournament team. He's big. I think he's going to be a lot better this season with more minutes. I think they're really good. The defense, Matt, it can't fall far. Maybe it falls a little bit. But the offense, I think, takes a big step up. Shooting is going to be a question mark as always, unless these freshmen really step up. But I still think it's going to be a much improved offensive team without giving too much back on the defensive end.
Yeah, shooting's where I'm looking. It's sort of like, Chris Jans at Mississippi State. We've seen Pikiell try to address it multiple off seasons, and it's just like, okay. And then we get on the floor and no one can make shots again. It's the same old song. But I think there actually are some shooters this season for sure. I mean, Bailey makes crazy shots. I'm not sure how efficiently he'll make them, but Martini and Hayes can certainly shoot it. And I think Durkak's maybe a better shooter than he showed. But I like the Jeremiah Williams, Shamichael Davis sort of forgotten older duo in the backcourt. I think will be a lot better this year, and this team needs them to be really good to sort of stabilize the inevitable freshman ebbs and flows that you'll probably get from Harper, definitely from Bailey. I mean, I think Bailey's going to definitely have some stinker games where it's like, oh God, 3 of 15 and taking dumb shots. But if you have this, this complementary consistency around him, Jamichael Davis, point guard-ish into sophomore, Jeremiah Williams can kind of run the show as well. There's a lot of good creatorship. I like that. You have basically 3 ball creators with Harper, Davis, and Williams potentially. It's a good foundation to have, good decision-making, good shot selection. Just got to make shots.
Yeah, and like you said, he's tried to address it. Ken Pom even took a little shot at him when I think Pikiell made fun of Ken Pom's stuff, and he was like, hey, maybe worry about finding some shooting. That has been an issue there. And even guys that have gone in with very strong shooting reputations, like Gavin Griffiths last year was supposed to be a very good shooter, and he was bricky. Is it just the background in Jersey Mike's arena, the rack, or what? They just got to find a way to instill more confidence in those guys. But if both freshmen shoot, you can play a lot of lineups with three shooters, with Martini or Hayes. And again, Acuff was a very useful complementary player as a sophomore and junior before having to be the star, and his efficiency really dropped as a senior at Eastern Michigan. So I think there's enough there if the freshmen hit as both scorers and playmakers. I'm buying the potential. I'm buying Steve Peichel, showing people that he can actually win when he gets elite talent like this. So that's why I'm higher on Rutgers, have them up at 5th. Number 6, UCLA, team that actually feels more stable, not real wide range of outcomes. With Mick Cronin in charge, great defensive coach. Matthew, he brought back the pieces he wanted to bring back. Dylan Andrews, Sebastian Mack, Lazar Stefanovic, 3 guys that played 30 minutes a game last year. And then the transfer class just really fills in a lot of the blanks. Kobe Johnson is the most Mick Cronin player ever. William Kyle, ridiculous athlete at center. Bilodeau's really highly thought of, and I know Cronin loved Bilodeau when playing against him last year. That's kind of the thing you love, Matthew, the recruiting the guys in conference. But how will Sky Clark and Dominic Harris fit here? Are they going to play enough defense? What can they get from Ade Mata in year 2, the 7'3" Spaniard? There's some questions, Matt, but I think the backcourt's steady and the coach is steady enough that I feel good UCLA will be in that 25 to 35-ish range, maybe a little higher.
Yeah, I think you get another year of Dylan Andrews and Sebastian Mack as kind of your 2 guards. We feel good about that, I think, coming off last season. Kobe Johnson, I absolutely adore. I think he's going to be a potential I don't know, where'd you have him on your all-conference team, Jim? Maybe you didn't. I think he's an all-conference guy.
I don't think he does counting stats enough to be on there, okay. But he is an all-world defender. Yeah,
awesome. And William Kyle, like that type of big man prototype under Cronin's tutelage, I think he's going to be an absolute rim-rocking defensive rim protector rebounder that they need. And then the rest of the roster guys, just a bunch of upside guys, right? Eric Daly. I mean, Ade Mara, we all hyped up last season. Surely he's going to be better in year 2. Like, we can't just talk about him all day last year and then not talk about him this year just because he's not projected to start because they have older guys this season. Yeah, it's going to be a good team this year in UCLA. I'm curious how their home court stands up. I think that's the big question with this team. Big Ten home courts have been just ferociously awesome the last few years, and UCLA kind of notorious for not having that same juice. Maybe the West Coast travel will trip up some teams, but it does matter because I think home court is worth so much, and it's how a lot of these teams are able to kind of pad their bubble resumes because they have such a good home court and they get wins over those Q2, Q1 teams on their home floor. So we'll see.
Yeah, I'm in on this team. I put him 6 as well, Jim. The media put him 3rd. Surprising. Cronin had them playing a lot better last year, and that team was kind of a mess from a roster standpoint. Matt smartly pointed it out last offseason. Andrews Mack, love that as a 1-2 punch at guard. I do like the ads they brought. I'm not ready to crown William Kyle a surefire Big Ten player. I watched him a lot at South Dakota State.
Oh, he is. I'm in.
Look, he's not. He's still a little bit
raw,
uncoordinated. Yeah, raw is the right word. Yeah, a little raw. He's a great athlete, but I think you're going to see some surprising misses. We'll say on offense. We'll say, Mara is the big question. Can he break out? He has the tools. He could be great for them. I do like, to Matt's point, the upside for the depth. Even Sky Clark, man. Dominic Harris, if he ends up being on this roster eventually, he's still off the roster, Jim. What's the deal with him?
I haven't checked recently, but he was like late to enroll. I think he's on it now.
Yeah, I mean,
double check.
Ailey Clark Harris has guys that might come off the bench. That's really good. All 3 of those guys, I think, could start for most teams in the country. It's a veteran team, tough team, combined with upside with a coach I trust. Lots to like about UCLA.
Yeah, he's on the roster now. Sorry, that was like a 2-month-old note in my sheet that he hadn't quite enrolled yet. But yeah, like there are options here, and that's what makes me feel good. If Harris or Clark don't mesh, that they're totally okay with that. They've got options to go to, and Cronin will nail them to the bench and be totally fine with it. All right, next up, Illinois. Hello, variance here. This is a very wide range of outcomes team to me because they're relying on a ton of international guys. Kaspers Jakasionis, Zvonimir Tomislav Ivasic, Will Riley, young freshman. And I guess Ivasic isn't young per se, but guys that are young to the Division I game. A couple transfers from bad teams: Ben Hummerkaus, Trey White, Kerry Booth. And then another freshman, Morris Johnson, Kylan Boswell, who has been on very, very good teams at Arizona, but has been more complimentary piece. You have to project roles here. You give definitely a boost for Brad Underwood, Kai. There's some questions. Like, I don't really know how this team gets a lot of rim pressure off the bounce unless Jekis Jonas is awesome. Yeah. And maybe he is. People love him. But there's no like booty ball replacement. That is not something Ben Hummerkaus is going to do. I do not think he's not on Damascus level as a playmaker. Where do you see Illinois here? I know there's a lot of high end outcomes that people are seeing, but there's risk too.
I ended up putting him 5. That was more of a function of just Underwood keeping them up and trusting more on the high side than the low side. But I do think they have a big range of outcomes. It could go horribly. I'm still a Boswell believer. I think he has a lot more in the tank to break out. I think Hummerkaus is serviceable at this level. Maybe not a star, but and not the same impact to your point as Domask, but I think he'll be a good starter in the Big Ten. Yeah, Kasparis is the key. Can he deliver on hype? If he's good, like an Iggy Brazdeikis type of impact, then yeah, 5th place in the Big Ten and a really good team nationally is definitely in the cards. It's just so hard to project. Will Riley, I don't expect a ton from, honestly. Super skinny, reclass. I just do not see him taking a starting spot and being a super impactful player on day one. I can't see it. Visage, I have no idea. He could be good. He could be bad. He's old. No idea. I do like some of the pieces off the bench, Matt. There's a lot of versatility on this team. And again, it's Underwood. I did land them 5th. I can see them sliding out of the top 10, though, in this conference.
Yeah, I think it's the lowest floor of any team you have in the top 10. I had them closer to like 9. I think they were better than I initially gave them credit for. But what differentiates them from the teams I have above them slightly, their depth and optionality, which is a very clear theme across all these Big Ten teams, like just so deep. Like you just don't know what the pecking order is going to be for Indiana or UCLA or Oregon. It's like, okay, there's enough weapons there that's going to probably filter and, the coach will figure it out. There's just more downside risk with those individual parts here at Illinois because of the inexperience. I know there's some older guys like Hummerkaus and Rogers, but like the relative inexperience was kind of the point I was trying to make in the Discord. Like every team in this league has super duper seniors. This team's going to rely on 3 like freshmen, like in their top 7 potentially. I know they're talented. That's great. I know K-Jack is going to be a star. Actually, I'm totally bought into him being awesome. But yeah, just a little bit more downside risk with me with the Illini, as much as I love Underwood. So I did have them a slight tick below the other guys.
Yeah, Underwood's been in the top 35 for 5 straight years. We'll give him a semi-painter-esque hat tip there, but this does feel like the team that finished 35th to me in 2023 that had almost no minutes continuity. They were like 340th in that department. They were young, played a lot of freshmen. That's kind of where this team lands too. And so I feel like it's more in that 7 to 9 seed range like that team was than top 4 seed as they have been in some of Underwood's other years. There are rosy outcomes where it gets better, but that's where I'm landing on them right now. Illinois 7th for me. Number 8, Michigan State. Very unproven here as well. Youngish, not freshman heavy, but they've got a lot of sophomores that they're going to be relying on with Fears, with Carr, with Booker. Jaden Akins, the one real steady veteran, and a couple centers that are big shoulder shrugs for me with Cooper and with Kohler. Frankie Fiddler's going to need to be a big addition as a scorer, giving them the veteran kind of mismatch, mid-post type guy, big-time shooter, replacing the Joey Hauser impact from 2 years ago. But ultimately, Matt, it kind of comes down to where are we at on Izzo? Is this still a program that just develops like mad internally, and that's why we should have faith in them? Or is this program dropped a little bit in recent years, and there should be a little more skepticism of a team with not a ton of returning production?
There should be skepticism. I find myself too high on this team. I'm like, yeah, I have them like ahead of Illinois, and obviously the roster, you look at it, you could certainly make a case that Illinois has more talent. I do think Jeremy Fears is going to be awesome. I firmly believe that. And I don't know why. I'm kind of buying into some of the stuff I read this offseason. I like Akins. We know what Carr and Booker could be if Izzo kind of lets them loose and what they develop into in a second year here, Kai. But again, like Illinois, they are relatively inexperienced. I think you have to kind of take note of that. I know it's not a bunch of freshmen, but second year guys playing against 5th and 6th year guys, I think that does show up, especially in the dog days of Big Ten play, for the guys that haven't gone through it for multiple years.
They're inexperienced, but it's a different experience. They have a lot of continuity. I mean, almost everyone is back from last year, aside from the guards. the
He kept
Walker
his young core
Co-Guard.
intact, which I do
Right.
like, right?
Illinois is bringing in new young guys and a lot of transfers. Michigan State is basically bringing the roster back. Continuity and Tom Izzo, sign me up. The record belied how good this team was last year. 16th in the country in KenPom. They were an elite team. They're 10-10 in the Big Ten. Most people look at that and say, "Oh, this team's going to suck this season." I don't think they will. Fears, Hollum, and Akins is a really, really solid backcourt. I think, and you add Fiddler on the wing, more than capable, I think, to have somewhat of an impact in this league. He's not quite Hummerkaus, but I think he can be close to his impact for Illinois. I don't see why not. Booker, I hope they unleash him. You mentioned Carr. He's a plug-in hustle piece. He's a great athlete and a great, potentially a great defender. He'll never be an awesome offensive player, unfortunately,
Yeah,
but I do think he'll be a nice piece for them. To Jim's point, I don't like Cooper or Kohler, but they have experience, and them having them as depth pieces in the front court, I'm more than okay with. So I think this team's rock solid. I put them fourth. I expect Izzo to just be, once again, pretty darn good.
Yeah, they lost a lot of close games last year. That was a big part of why their KenPom rank was so high, yet they only went 10-10 in the Big Ten and got a 9 seed. But they lost a lot of close games. I think part of that is Tyson Walker being a little banged up, not having the same kind of juice at the end of games, which they needed. Now, do they have that late game score here? I think that's going to be a fair stone to throw at this team. But I still trust the system and to stay in that, top 25, 30-ish range overall, which would equate to typically 11 or so Big Ten wins. And I think that would be a pretty solid outcome for Michigan State. All right, into tier 2, Ohio State kicking this group off. Really rock solid backcourt. I love the Bruce Thornton, Michi Johnson combination. Michi, a nice boomerang back to Columbus. Really talented front court with Sean Stewart, Aaron Bradshaw, even Chapman got a lot of run under Diebler last year. But man, that is the question. How do you feel about Diebler? Kai Matt mentioned his skepticism before we got into this. How do you feel about the Buckeyes? Do you think that they can be maximized based on Diebler being in charge?
Yeah, I think that's my biggest question. I like the roster better than the coaching situation. I put him 8th, basically the same as Rutgers right now, because it's fully hard to trust Diebler. You say, okay, he had a great impact when he took over. They beat Purdue. We've seen that there's a lot of shooting split luck that went into both Holtman's struggles and Diebler's successes during the last end of the year. I don't think you can crown him as a fantastic coach yet. I'm skeptical. I think Thornton's a stud. I think Michi's improved a ton since he was here last time as a freshman, and maybe as a sophomore. I can't remember if he stayed 2 years or not at Ohio State, but the Stewart-Bradshaw combo could be deadly. At least one of those guys breaks out. I don't think you go over 2 there. I think at least one guy has an impactful season. I think Parrish is a great ad. Quez Glover, I've seen a lot of oh, thank God we got Glover. I wouldn't expect too much from Glover. I mean, he couldn't even get on the floor last year. Even if
he was hurt.
Even if he can't, I know. No, I understand. He was hurt. I don't trust his health. And even if he does, I don't think he's that impactful at this level, to be honest. Defense is going to be a question, Matt, like it was under Holtman.
Yep.
Maybe the front court helps that. Maybe Stewart-Bradshaw really helps that defense. We'll see. It's a team just like Rutgers for me, just like Michigan, like right in that range.
Yeah, I do worry about their interior physicality force up front. I mean, if Stewart breaks out, that could kind of be the solution there. But it does feel like this team is a little too guard oriented for the Big Ten. Maybe that's sort of the zig against the zag that Diebler wants. I think that's what he was trying to do late last season. And I love the upside with the backcourt. I mean, Thornton, Parrish, and Johnson, that's really, really good. And the freshman, the Mobley kid, I've read some good things about too. Royal off the bench is kind of a forgotten piece. So I like the upside. Love it. Coaching concerns me. Like if you're an Ohio State fan and you see Michigan get Dusty May, who's like an accomplished coach, and then you hire Diebler, I'm sorry, I'm kind of bummed out by that. I think I lost that hiring battle if I'm an Ohio State fan. We'll see. Again, we'll see. But just sort of the vibes I would be, the vibe situation I would be at, Jim, if I were an Ohio State fan. Still, love the upside. Love the upside.
I think I said Chapman for the front court. He's the injured guard. It's actually Royal that played a lot more late in the year. So just to issue a quick correction
Royal was
there.
very good late.
I need less Mahaffey. He was like one of the least per minute productive players in the conference last year. Could not score down the stretch. I like Royal taking some of his minutes. And yeah, Mobley, I like him too, Matt. Kind of a big-bodied guard that can get into the paint. I think that's going to be useful to go with Thornton and Johnson, who I think are a little more pull-up based. They want to kind of get to their spots and get jumpers off. That's what Thornton excels at. that front court is kind of what it comes down to. Do Stewart and Bradshaw really cover up the holes defensively? Because it's been a real problem. We'll see if that is fixed.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Did Ohio State screw themselves by firing Holtman mid-year? If they would have fired him at the end of last year, there's 0% chance Diebler's the head coach.
Yeah,
it's the same as the Travis Steele thing, the Chris Beard, Rodney Terry thing. I just don't get the.
Well, it's not the same as the Chris Beard thing.
It's not but you need to get outside the.
You had to fire him.
Well, but Rodney Terry, you didn't have to hire Rodney Terry. You didn't have to hire Travis Steele, Xavier. Like, hire a good coach. Like, unless you have a no-brainer internal guru wonderkind you've been grooming, like, make the best hire. There's so many good coaches out there. I just don't think. Why would you limit yourself to the internal?
Hope is there instead. Dominoes fall. Musselman's there.
I'm sure Diebler's going to rock, and maybe eat my words here, but it's just like for Ohio State, like,
I'm not sure.
I wouldn't limit yourself, and you did. So,
yeah, I just think the big thing is don't look at that sample that he had and be like, this is proof that he's a good coach. It was a small sample with very positive shooting splits, and it was a team that probably needed a refresh button that really was that good the whole time, and just kind of had hit a point where both Holtman and the program needed to move on. And I don't know if that's something you want to sign up for long term. We'll see if it works out. Number 10, I have Washington, a team that a lot of other people are much lower, and I could see it. There is some downside risk here, but Danny Sprinkle has won everywhere he's gone. He brought Great Osobor with him, the Mountain West Player of the Year, so I think that gives you a nice hub offensively to play through. He got some intriguing guard pieces. Zoom Diallo has fallen a little bit in recruiting rankings, but it's a nice add. I like Tyler Harris. I like the Rice transfer Mason. I think there's enough here, Kai, that I'm buying it, and I realize that that's probably the hipster opinion on the Huskies, but I like Washington. I think they're going to be very, very feisty.
I ended up putting him 11, Jim, so I'm higher as well on them apparently, based on media polls and based on what I've seen in general Twitter sphere, Discord sphere. I agree. Danny Sprinkle rocks. Osobor rocks. These guys are not overrated. They are going to be very good in this league. You have Osobor first team All Big Ten. Yes, he absolutely belongs there. The guy won Mountain West Player of the Year over a literal All-American, Jaden Ledee. He is very, very good. I think DJ Davis is a great player. Great get. Yeah, I like the Mason get. I like Makai Mason get. I know he was at Rice, but I think he might be serviceable. I think a lot depends on Diallo. Is he going to take the point reins? Can he be good right away? DJ Davis can run point if he really needs to. But I do think Diallo is key. A guy no one's really talking about, Chris Conway, is a fantastic depth piece. He started alongside Townsend in Oakland's front court.
Defender.
They have a ton of front court depth.
Sorry, defender.
Yeah, a ton of front court depth, can play a lot of different looks in the backcourt. I do believe in this team as well, Matt. Put him 11th. Again, that range is wide.
Yeah, my Peyton years buddies were making fun of Casey Abekwe. Why did they pick up it? But
he's not very good.
he's not great. There's a reason he's the 8th guy off the bench, so it does not matter. I was also like, freshman point guard that's not like Dylan Harper level caliber with Zoom Diallo. I think he's supposed to be very good, but still, I'm color me skeptical. However, this system does not require a super dynamic point guard. I think it's more of a by committee. The initiation is via the guards and the wings and the bigs. So I mean, really, you just need a guy who can kind of move the ball there and make shots and defend ideally. So the roster has more oomph than I initially thought, Jim. I think I had this team a little bit too low, and I took a second look. It's like, yeah, I like Sprinkle quite a bit. I think I'm going to give him another nudge, closer to 10, I guess. Right? Yeah, 10.
Yeah, it's not a super glamorous group. Clearly, a lot of their NIL went to the $2 million that they paid Osobor, widely reported there, but which is crazy. Yes, Kai laughed at, but they need Kepnang healthy. Matthew, you that's your boy, big man in the paint. He's been impactful on winning for multiple years now. They do have depth. It's not a panic crisis situation if he gets hurt again, but he is the best center of that group, and I think they're much better if he's out there. Number 11, Maryland, a team that Matt is in his tier 1, probably based on them adding some shooting with Jacoby Gillespie, Selton Miguel. Last year, it was a disaster. They were one of the worst three-point shooting teams in the country, and they took a lot of them. They stubbornly just kept firing. A lot of really crappy shooters had the green light, but they've got a big physical front court now. Julian Reese, Derek Queen, maybe some bit questions there, but you can stagger them. I think find ways to do that. I'm just not totally sold Deshaun Harris-Smith is good. He is a linebacker in a guard's body, a power forward that is 6'5". He can't shoot. That's kind of a tough piece to make fit with two non-shooting bigs as well. You can use Queen as a passer. Matthews coming from Montverde, really good winning situation, and he was a big part of that. But why are you so high on the Terps?
Excuse me, the Julian Reese bounce back. I'm a big sure. I think I saw he lost like 25 pounds or something. Like I think he's going to be awesome. I think it's a really good player who just people.
Good.
Was he fat? He was always skinny, right?
Good? It feels like a Zed Key lose what makes you awesome type of thing.
I didn't think he was that.
No,
bad.
he was. I thought he was a little not fat. I read that he is like. I think he is in store for a major bounce back season after what was a good year, but I think a little bit disappointing by his standards.
Too, Matt, to your point, I did not know.
He was kind of doughy, but he's bigger. Yeah, I mean, I think point is he needs to probably play a little bit more at the 4, not the 3, but like the 4 if you're going to make room for Derek Queen, who does look pretty good on tape. I'm not going to put a ton of stock in him. I love the Gillespie Miguel backcourt, and I like the depth off the bench too. I mean, I know Deshaun Harris-Smith has those shooting question marks, Jim, but I like him and Rice. It's a very athletic, switchable, versatile defensive makeup. I mean, you can poke holes at the offensive. Some of the floor spacing and shooting. I still think Miguel and Gillespie are going to solve like 90% of that, especially when you have a guy like Reese who can. What?
Did Reese add 25 pounds or did he lose? I think he added 25 pounds.
He's listed
he was 230 last year.
Yes,
yeah.
He added. He was
he added weight. Sorry. He's bulked up.
I was like,
good. That's good.
Same guy. I was like, what?
There's no way.
I'm thinking of Dante. Oh yeah, sorry. I'm thinking of Dante Scott losing weight, which would make more sense, I guess.
Julian
okay,
Reese,
yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Ooh, phew. All right.
He's built like his sister. I mean, they're both skinny.
But Reese is pretty critical for this team. Like I do think he was kind of inefficient last year, had to do too much. I think he has more depth around him, a deeper supporting cast where his offensive efficiency should improve without carrying such a heavy load. Especially with Gillespie's so good at the point. Really, really solid. I think can I say he's better than Jalen or Jameer Young? Is that too far?
Not even
He's
close.
not even close.
I won't allow that.
No,
it's not even close.
I think it's
Young
close.
Was.
I think it's close.
Look how good Young was last year.
I know he was really good. He was really good.
I think Gillespie's very good, but I don't think he's close to that level. He's only played at Belmont, and they weren't even a top 3 Valley team. Like, I really have
hot take. I was not a Jameer Young guy. I'm sorry. That's just a Matty eye test thing. I know the stats were decent. He didn't shoot well.
More than
I
decent.
Didn't like it.
He was second in the conference in usage and a 110-0 rating. That's really good.
I know.
With no shooting around him.
Empty calorie stats on a 16 and 17 team. The team was weird last year. Throw it out.
Hey,
you can't empty calorie stats me with Gillespie on a non-top 100 team.
They were young. Belmont's going to be good. 1 year development, better supporting cast around him. Key defense,
think Belmont
plays both ways.
This year than last year, which is, I think, an indictment.
Ooh, no way. No way.
Miguel, fine player.
Miguel rocks.
He doesn't rock. He's fine.
South Florida?
I liked him at South Florida. I certainly did. I don't think I'm relying on him as my... that's the point. I think Maryland's could be great again defensively. Top 15 defense last year. They could definitely be good on that end again. But the shooting, I think, is still a problem. And you're relying on Gillespie and Miguel translating to this level. I know Miguel, didn't he begin his career at K-State? I don't think he got on the floor.
Yeah, South Florida was better than Maryland last year. Like, this is an easy translation for Miguel, I think.
So, I mean, they weren't by like any KenPom rating. They were like 30 spots behind.
Maryland was better than South Florida, but
okay, close.
People worry about.
Go ahead, finish Kai, and then I have a thing for Matt.
I said people worry about Wolf and Golden. I think Queen Reese at the same time is a horrible idea. I think
it's way worse.
A big problem, and I think you almost. If you don't do that, then okay, someone's getting pissed. You're not going to bench Reese. He's your program guy. So you bring in a top 15 recruit in Queen, and you're going to play him 15 minutes a game. I think
they were teammates in high school. I really love that vibe. Like all high school teammates reuniting up front. Like that's a cool thing. I don't think
in high school that works just fine. I think at the college level with 2 non-shooters, I don't think it works as well.
Reese and Queen were Reese is 4 years older than him. Did they play 1 year together?
I think they play 1 year together or something like that.
That's cooking on the Maryland preview so far.
Matt, we're board betting Illinois versus Maryland. You have them in different tiers.
Okay. Oh, absolutely.
I'm summarizing.
I have Maryland 1 point higher than Illinois, but I will just emphatically bet it because I want Illinois to be worse than Maryland just for this discussion.
Good.
I think that could absolutely happen for the record, and I have Maryland 13th, but it's a wide range for me, man.
Kai, you jumping in on the board bet? Illinois versus Maryland.
I think Illinois will be better, but no, I'm not going to jump. These teams could easily be 5-13 flopped. Maryland, much lower ceiling. Much lower ceiling.
Yeah, Matt, we're doing Ken Palm rank, right? Because I don't want to look at Big Ten schedules. I don't want to. I don't want to figure
Yeah,
that
yeah,
out.
I agree. It's fair.
Okay, I feel handicapped there. I've got the young team that could start slow. That's fine. I'll take it. I'll take Illinois over Maryland. Board bet. Boom. Lock it in. Finally, we're getting some going. Okay.
Love the fire.
A lot
About
of time.
time we get some
Yeah.
fire on this podcast. Jeez.
Yeah. A lot of time on Maryland. Love it. Next up,
Herp.
Iowa. Hey, the offense is going to rock. That's kind of unmesswithable. That you can't break that here with the way McCaffrey coaches it. The ball movement's too good. The scheme is too good. They've got shooting in place. The Sanford brothers, Harding, Dix, big time shooters. Is Owen Freeman plus Traore plus Drew Thelwell from a decent defensive system, is that enough to fix the defense? I do not think so. I think this will definitely be outside the top 100. Again, the perimeter defense is going to be a sieve. They'll have to play some zone, Matthew. I'm not huge on Iowa's defense, but I know they'll score again. I'm concerned that they could score enough to be higher than where I have them 12th.
Yeah, I think if they're going to be better defensively, Fran needs to turn back the clock to the 2022 year, right? They won the Big Ten tournament, lost to Richmond first round, but that was a really good team. And they were fifth in the Big Ten in defense that year. Like the fact that Iowa was ever fifth in the Big Ten defense is crazy, but they led the conference in turnovers. They pressured, right? They used their perimeter foot speed. And I think there's elements to that on this roster, especially if you have a guy like Freeman at the back line, who is not like a big post defender like Ballo kind of is. Like Freeman can really jump and like he can block shots. So he's a kind of a better back end safety net type guy in a pressure scheme. So I kind of like the defense, and the offense is always good. I think this roster is like deceptively solid, and it seems like it's getting no attention because everyone hates Fran and the attendance is falling at Iowa and the vibes are bad and yada yada yada. It's like I think if we just get past all that, I think this is kind of a Iowa with lower expectations is probably better than you think. Iowa with high expectations, maybe not as good as you think. And I think this group falls in the former.
I'm starting to notice some momentum actually, Matt, for Iowa, like
okay, good.
being good this year. I put them 10. I think it's a top 10 offense, but to Jim's point, probably like 100 defense. I think it's same old, man. Sanford Freeman, that combination is about as good as it gets in the Big Ten. It's close to as good as it gets, especially offensively. And maybe Freeman's rim protection gives them a little hope to improve a little bit defensively. I just think losing Tony Perkins on the ball sucks for that. You're replacing with Harding, with Thelwell. Neither of those guys are guaranteed to be good at all on either end. I understand Thelwell has a lot of hype and expectation. You're still moving up a level. And he struggled at times at Moorhead as well. So there's question marks here. If I'm going to knock Gillespie, I'm going to knock Thelwell. I think Josh Dix is good. I think the system is great. This feels like an Iowa team that can finish in their typical 7 to 10 seed game range.
Yeah, I'm curious if they lean into the offensive identity and play like Sanford at the 4, or if they really force Traore out there and play a bigger at point with Thelwell and really try to like, can we have a defensive lineup and get the best of both worlds? I'm skeptical. And Kai, to your point, with Matt talking about their pressure, Perkins is or was a big part of that. Just like 6'4" guy running around, great instincts, getting passing lanes. I don't think they have that here. I'm not buying the defensive ceiling despite the addition of Traore. I know Iowa fans are high on it, but I'm personally not. Number 13, Nebraska. Got a dynamite two-way combination at wing. Bryce Williams on offense, Juwan Gary on defense. Now, they're not useless on the opposite ends from each other, but those two can really carry a team in that regard. Riley Worster, big time impact on winning at Utah. They tumbled when he got hurt last year. Decent gambles on Esijan, Gavin Griffiths as kind of buy low shooters, but Rink Mask out for the season. Kai, he was the big facilitator on offense, could also shoot, stretch 5 that could pass and also guard the post. It's super, super rare. They do not have one of those. Hoiberg's gonna have to kind of retool the attack without the big man passer. How do you see it playing out for Nebraska this year?
I'm like a broken record with wide range, but I do think Nebraska has a wide range again. Them finishing third again would be shocking to me. But it's hard to I put them 14, and I'm like, man, I feel like I'm too low based on this roster, based on what I think Hoiberg has done a great job recently, kind of finding his identity at this program. The Williams-Gary combination is an awesome twosome. I do think this team isn't too different from last year, but losing Tominaga's gravity certainly hurts. And Rink Mass is a very underrated loss with his injury, like you said. Worster, sure. Griffiths, meh. Mia, meh. I don't love the bench. There's potential. Maybe Burka comes along, surprises us.
No, that guy stinks.
Maybe. Andrew Morgan, he's a potential offensive piece. He does not fit the Nebraska defensive mindset. He's soft as butter. It's not going to be a good thing defensively. He might be okay offensively off the pine. Overall, it's a bottom 8 team for me. But again, Matt, I mean, they have a pretty solid floor. They're going to be competitive in every single game. I have no doubts about that.
I think had Mast come back this year or had been healthy, I was prepared to go like top 6 in this. I was ready to go all on in this roster. I really, really, really like this roster, but Mast is the guy that kind of sets everyone in their proper place. I think without him, the offense kind of has to evolve a little bit because you don't have that interior hub that you can play through such a good passer. As much as I love Braxton Mia, and no one loves Braxton Mia more than me, he's not Rick Mast. A little more on the creation shoulders of Raleigh Worcester. Again, my guy, but I like him more as a game manager type guy. I think he has to be a little bit more dynamic without Mast. Right around the Iowa range, Jim. I agree with Kai, high range of outcomes. I'm just bummed that there's no Mast because I was ready to put like every chip I had in on Nebraska this year being better than last season.
Yeah, I'm not even going to say wide range because I don't think the ceiling's super high. But I think
that's fair.
I would be surprised if they suck with the twosome of Gary and Williams. I don't know how they're going to create shots in the half court after what made them unique with Mass last year. And 2 years ago, Derek Walker was fantastic at it. Tominaga flying around screens. They don't have that same kind of threat unless the Season starts burying shots again. Okay, number 14, USC. Really strange roster here. It's like, how many 6'6" wings can we accumulate and hurl at you at one time? There's not a true real point guard unless you're playing Slackert there, which I don't think they're going to. The Penn transfer. Be a lot of St. Thomas, Matthew, a lot of Desmond Claude. Not super true big men, but it does fit Musselman's kind of versatile, switchy attack mismatches kind of strategy. Is the talent level high enough to play that system and consistently beat teams in the Big Ten and into March?
I think it just, who knows with this team, right? Like, I just feel like it's with the Arkansas. I'll reassess USC like in January. Making sense of what this rotation looks like right now is basically a waste of time. I think they've had some couple guys like injured this offseason and Musselman just basically tinkers like a mad scientist for the first few months of the year and they look really disjointed and we all think they suck. And then lo and behold, the talent and the roster tightens up by February, March. Didn't happen last year because they had injuries and sort of rotten chemistry. We'll see what that looks like this year. I like the Jimmy's and Joe's guy. I'm not worried about chemistry being a problem, even though every player on this roster averaged at least 12 points a game at their prior destination. I think they're gonna be fine. I think it'll be okay.
This is the hardest team to rate. I do think chemistry is a potential. How do you coexist? How do you take first team? How do you take all conference guys at every single level? You have 9 of them basically. Number 1, number 2 options from every single team, and meld them together quickly while stepping up a level for most of these guys. I think it's a huge challenge. It's basically a mid-major all-star team plus Claude and Terrence Williams. They could be top 10 in the Big Ten. They could be last. Josh Cohen, I was totally wrong about him translating to the A10. I'm positive he's not going to be dominant in the Big Ten. He just can't be. He doesn't have the physical tools. He is somehow he scores. Without physical tools, he scores in the block. I think he'll struggle in the Big Ten against actual Big Ten size. St. Thomas, I have real questions about. Yes, he was awesome in Northern Colorado. He makes some great plays. He is not going to be as efficient or as effective in the Big Ten. Everyone on the roster, Jim, is a good player. The depth's real, but Musselman has been famous for, not playing a lot of guys. He's going to cut this rotation to maybe 7, 8 guys. Someone's going to be unhappy. I have a lot of questions with USC.
Yeah, you've got 7 grad transfers that averaged double figures last year, and that does not include Desmond Claude, does not include the top 50 recruit, Elohim. I don't know how you make everyone happy here unless the grad transfers are all like, we're just buying into roles because we want to win, and we haven't. Most of them have not won big. Boise State, I believe, the only team that was in the tournament last year. I guess Wait, did Yale? Yeah, Yale won. Yale beat
Yale
Auburn.
won. Yeah.
So
They,
Matt
they
Nolan.
come from good mid-major teams, just like not like really, really good programs, right? So it's like they are sort of hoping to win at a higher level because the higher level gives them an opportunity.
Like Claude from Xavier wasn't that smooth last year, and he wants to play on the ball more, which concerns me. Terrence Williams from Michigan was a complete disaster. UMass wasn't all that good outside of Cohen's kind of like Garza Kai, where he's just like so good at angles and using his body.
He really is. Like watching his tape, you're like, this guy's gonna score 20 points this game. Oh yeah, he did.
Like, yeah, he just like seals you. He gets it in the right position. Do they have good post passers? That's the question. We'll find out. They don't really have a lot of good passers on the team, just decent ones. I could see booty ball with St. Thomas again, mismatch attack with isolating against smaller defenders. That's probably something they'll use. That one is a tough nut to crack. These guys hit that on the head.
Yeah, I think Musselman overpromises in the portal. That he's notorious for that. So I think a lot of these guys would be disappointed. He overpromises spots.
He does.
Chris Likes did like a video about that. He's like, there was like why did my time at Arkansas not work out? Exactly. He's like, here's why. Okay, number 15, Wisconsin. Really far down to find a Badger team is typically the model of consistency. And that's really what they have back is all their consistent pieces. Stephen Crowell is going to be somebody you can build around in the paint. The perimeter, maybe John Blackwell has the breakout that you need. The transfer class is just like screaming out for more NIL money. It's very clear that is a lacking department for the Badgers, but you can see him being useful. Tanjo is very good at a Colorado State team that was solid 2 years ago. If he's healthy, not so bad there. Kellen Amos's versatility, Cam Hunter can score. Does it all add up to a winner in the Big Ten, Kai? That is the question I pose to you, especially with Gard being one of the Trilly Donovan hot seat members.
I've started to warm on this team. I put him at 12. I think Blackwell could be a stud. He's a lot of upside. Jim, this freshman point guard Freitag, I mean, he could be a stud too. He could start right away.
I love that guy.
He's awesome. Like you don't have to rely on Cameron Hunter, who is the biggest question mark on this roster. He hasn't played in over a year. He comes from Central Arkansas, a bad program. He was great in the A-Sun. I have a lot of questions at this level. Again, you might not need him. Freitag might be that good right away. I think Crowell's rock solid. I think Klesmit's a solid starter. Shooting is going to be a strength. That's huge, especially if Tanjay comes around and plays to his potential and stays healthy. And the system's the system. I understand Guard's in the hot seat, man. He hasn't done a whole lot wrong. He has these like late season swoons, but he still finished 17th last year in KenPom, like top 20. It's such a what have you done for me lately type of league. He's kept his program strong. I think their floor is fairly high.
Yeah, it's very high. It's just Wisconsin's boring. I wrote down.
Yeah, they're boring.
Purdue, Michigan State, Iowa, and Wisconsin are like the four horsemen who are just kind of older school, internal development, do it their way. And those teams, in my opinion, tend to be underrated year over year in this league because they just don't have the cachet of the new, sexy transfer get. This is the most watered down class of those four. Obviously, Jim mentioned the NIL issues, but this team will not be bad. It will not be a bad team. I don't know how great they'll be, but this will not be a bad team, even though the transfers maybe don't look so good on paper.
Yeah, well, Guard he finished 61st in KenPom in 2023, still won 20 games, 9 in the Big Ten. And then the real disaster, I say in quotes, year was 2018, 15 and 18 overall, 7 and 11 in the Big Ten. If the worst possible scenario is 60th to 70th, then they're still going to be competitive, win some games at the Kohl Center, and be annoying to play against because they'll slow you down into the half court. Number 16, Northwestern, perhaps too low for the Wildcats, Purple Kittens, with the run they've been on under Chris Collins. My goodness, how have the vibes swung around him? People mentioning him to move up. 2 years ago, they would not have said that, but he's had 2 great years with the best player in program history, Boo Buie, who also was in the 99th percentile net rating per CBB Analytics. Now, he never left the floor. Small sample with him off. But Kai, I think his impact on everything they did with his gravity, his playmaking, his clutchness late in close games, it's going to be missed despite having a decent core returning.
Yeah, it's a hard team to rank again. Do you get swept up in last year, or do you realize it's Northwestern? Last year still wasn't a top 40 team. They had the best player in program history. They were in top 40, and they were 87, 79, 132, 74, and 85 before those past 2 seasons. So again, it's what have you done for me lately? 3 years ago, people were calling for Collins' head, say he should be fired at Northwestern. Now it's give him the Duke job. It's crazy how it flip-flops. Bowie being gone is huge. He mattered a ton. Leach is not a good replacement for him at this level. He's just not. He could be he's a solid mid-major player for sure at Fairfield, not in the Big Ten. The rest of the team is solid, not outstanding. The depth's a little thin, especially at guard. Huge concern with the depth at guard. I know they don't play very fast. They don't need a lot of depth necessarily, play a lot of guys. But if you're going to play a guy who's less than average, Leach at this level, I think it's a problem. Barnheiser gets a lot of press. He's good. He's not a star. He's the ultimate, I am really solid at basketball. I'll never be your star or your go-to option.
Yeah, his production would make you think otherwise, but I agree with you. I don't think you want him as your quote unquote best player. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, I guess the context of that is sort of this team will be very balanced for sure. By committee, death by 1,000 paper cuts, very defensive leaning. Sort of what you saw toward the end of last year when they were hurt. They kind of just leaned into we're going to really guard you, and they did, and that was super effective. I don't know if that can work without Boo Buie doing superhero stuff on offense. But I can't believe I had this team rate or higher than Wisconsin. I'm sort of questioning myself, but I do think Collins and the defensive foundation last year with enough coming back, especially Barry. I think they're still in that close to that top 10 group this year.
I don't think you're crazy.
11th in the Big Ten on defense last year. 11th in the Big Ten during league play.
Yeah, well, they didn't. They didn't figure it out till. Yeah, that's stupid.
Yeah. That was dumb. Very dumb. They shot 40% from three. 42% from three in league play last year. Langborg is a big loss. Boo Buie is a huge loss. Made 93s at 80 or 43%. I mean, it's going to be. I think a little bit more of a rude awakening for a team that I think has solid pieces and balance, like Matt said, but I think the ceiling definitely lowers, and that comes down to, okay, I think they're a little worse than last year when they were not a top 40 team. Okay, I have them 50th to 60th, and that's bottom 5 in the Big Ten at this point. It's just, that's how good the league is, how balanced the league is. Last two teams here, Penn State 17. Again, this team's pretty solid. They added another dynamic scoring playmaker in Freddie DeLeon. If he does hit the way they hope he does, you add more speed to the backcourt, a bigger playmaker, another guy to give Ace Baldwin a little bit of a respite in creation. Very, very heavy pick and roll team last year. When Kanye Clary left, it just kind of did become the Baldwin show, and they got, a little better defensively and won 9 games in the Big Ten. But I don't know, Matt, it's just kind of a team that, when you look across the landscape, it fell towards the bottom end of it, despite my affinity for Rhodes as a coach and kind of their zag style to everybody else's zigging with a little more pressure. I do think that can actually hurt them a little bit sometimes in this league.
Yeah, I think I mentioned those core 4 teams that play more toward the old school type of program MO. I feel like Rhodes would be in that group, but he's moving up in class from VCU. He's trying to get in some transfers. He's at Penn State, so he probably needs to go external for talent. I think this sort of no man's land that he's stuck in that's what bothers me. This team had no identity last year. I worry that this year it looks a little bit more like his old rugged VCU teams, but not quite. And that's my question is what is Rhodes doing, Kai? And I say that not flippantly, but the identity is where my concerns lie with this team. Even though he has Baldwin and Kern, that's sort of the VCU transfer. He has some continuity. It should be better, but I don't think it'll be a ton better than last season.
He's struggling being Penn State in the basketball Big Ten. It's just hard to do. He's
tough
at
job,
disadvantage.
brutal job.
Yeah, this is the last place team for me. I love Baldwin, but the pieces around him are weak. DeLeon has the potential. He's the former big recruit, but he's still improving at this point. This team's just not exciting on paper. I have a really hard time squinting and seeing them as anything higher than a bottom 3 team in this conference. And they really weren't that far away last year from that. They ended up finishing 9 wins, but analytically they were pretty close. So I'm not intrigued. I think the bench is pretty weak. Last place behind Minnesota.
I love Hicks. I've always been kind of a Zach Hicks guy. He can really shoot it.
Yeah. Yep, I agree.
They were 14th dead last year in the Big Ten in 2-point percentage defense, and that was with Wahab. And I think there's we got Yannick Niederhauser, 2 blocks a game in 20 minutes, big time block rate, but he's only playing 20 minutes for Northern Illinois, who is not a top 300 team. We have to see some alarm bell there. He's not going to be a 30-minute per game interior rock suddenly for a good Big Ten defense. I just don't. I can't buy that. I don't buy that. It's nice to have a shot blocker on the back end if you want to pressure, as we talked about with a couple other teams. But I'm still skeptical he's going to be the guy there. And yeah, depth is shaky. Hey, how about Puff Johnson? I believe he had like 5 assists and 4 turnovers his entire season. That's just a fun little stat for him. That man does not make a play with the ball. He just wants to shoot. Last team, Minnesota. Kai, you are the resident Minnesota expert as a frequent visitor to the state. You've been to the barn. Ben Johnson, again, not a ton of expectations there. Clearly a little bit of NIL issues, struggle to retain some key pieces. Cam Christie is semi-unexpected one and done, really hurt the upside. They admirably filled in some spots. I can respect what they did in the portal to try to get pieces around Dawson Garcia, but just feels like a low ceiling team to me that is going to have to be feisty at home to be in that bubble discussion.
Yeah, when I first dove into the Big Ten, I fully expected to have Minnesota last with a bullet. Then I was like, wait a second, this team's actually not that bad. Like someone has to finish in these bottom 2 spots, and they're going to be in every game. Like you guys said, that the flatness of this league in ratings, yeah, they can play Purdue close. Absolutely. Garcia and Mitchell are really good returners. Garcia especially, all-conference player. I like the Cochran, the Odokale ads, the other transfer ads around them. It's a pretty deep team, and Ben Johnson doesn't really need a ton of depth. It's just a nice luxury to have, especially with his injury luck he's had over the last 3 or 4 years. So they're going to be scrappy. They're going to be a pain. Maybe their best strength, Matt, is their age. They're super old. There's no underclassmen in the top 10 of this projected rotation. I think that's huge. Scrappy team, likely finish near the bottom, but a team in the talks for the tournament, we'll say.
Yeah, they're old and they're big. They're like big dudes like Cochran and Patterson and Femi Odokale, and like this is, I think, a more rugged backcourt. I know that Mike Mitchell's still there, which pretty huge to keep him after you lost Hawken, but I think it was kind of a late gut punch. But to kind of backfill late with Cochran, you got depth off the bench. Yeah, I just think it's a high floor. Ben Johnson, rinse, wash, repeat. Not as good as last year. You don't have the Cam Christie NBA upside, obviously, but this team, God, there's a small chance I could see bubble talks about Minnesota by January. Small chance, but not impossible with this roster.
Yeah, you said not as good as last year, 78th in KenPom. I don't know. They have to be better than last year to get truly in the bubble conversation.
Yeah,
and I'm not positive they are, although like I said, they've got a lot of bites at the apple for solid rotation pieces. We didn't even mention Frank Mitchell, one of the best 2-way rebounders in the country to pair with Garcia up front. But I don't want Garcia being the paint anchor of my defense. I think playing him with a true center worked better last year with Payne, and that's not really what Frank Mitchell is.
How about Brendan Rigsby, who looked like the best player on the floor at times at Oregon, somehow out of nowhere last season, coming back from injury? Like that's
Patterson's best player, may not even Charlotte's best player, may not even starting this team. Yeah, there's depth there.
There's options, like Jim said. There's options.
Yeah, options. I guess.
Yeah, Rigsby confused us because he just buried threes and ripped our souls out with our bet on the first day of the season when we were on Georgia, and then the last 8 games of the year he had 10 total points. Just kind of vanished.
Bizarre. I don't know.
Very, very odd. But yeah, again, you can't take any team. I know Kai had Penn State last, but none of these teams are doomed to a bad year the way that I think Boston College is or whatever in the ACC. So I think there's at least some upside there, potential to get into the tournament mix. How many tournament teams, guys, real quick, and then we'll go do the review. There are 18 teams in this league. We've seen the Big Ten get 10 when they had 16. I'm going to say the Big Ten gets 11 teams. That is my forecast.
I think 11 or 12.
I'm going 11 as well. I think 16, maybe 17 have cases. Maybe 18 have cases that can make it. It's crazy.
I agree. You can make a case for everybody.
This league is. Yeah.
This conference is a microcosm of the NIL impact at the power level. Just so much depth and experience on these rosters, coming off the bench projected right now. I just think that you're just hoarding more and more talent is going to get them over 10. I do.
Yep. Every team has a top, a end of the bell curve outcome where they're in the tournament as an at-large.
Yes, for sure.
It's rarer for some teams for sure, but yeah, I think they could all get there. All right, that wraps up the Big Ten preview. Back to a quick review section here. Kai, kicking it over to you. Our reviews are.
It's very funny that Jim mentioned the Dusty May thing for Matt, because this review mentions it. Nick is listening, says, good podcast. Remember when Matt drafted Dusty May as the second best coach in the sport last offseason with only Sampson off the board? That's the review. Remember that, Matt?
I do. Yeah, wait. So I did. Yeah, I took
Self,
it.
Matthew.
It was
Who's the biased
Samson,
Mizzou fan
and
here?
then Samson, and then me at May.
Yeah.
We'll see what we'll see what he does this year. We'll see what Bill Self does this year. By the way, not exactly a great year last year for Bill Self. By the way, Bill Self defenders.
Okay. Would you say it was a great year for Dusty?
He quit on his team, but
solid year.
No, it's down. He was at FAU. What's the term in FAU? Come on.
All right,
you're lucky, Michigan.
Appreciate the reviews. Keep leaving them.
Yeah, great
5-star ratings.
I like a Raz review too. That's good. We'll poke. Yep. All right. Thank you everybody for tuning in. That's the Big Ten preview. We'll be back next week, likely with the Big 12. I don't know. We'll wait. We'll find out. Big 12 SEC still to come. We're getting closer and closer to the year. Very excited about it.